I'm here to outline the process for lake watershed management planning. So it's a step-by-step process that ALMS is recommending, and it hopefully touches on a lot of what we already heard today. So I guess just to summarize, why do we need lake management plans? First, we've heard a lot about small and large cumulative impacts that are happening over time in response to how we're living, working, and playing in our lakes and around their watersheds. And lakes, they can't manage themselves. So they need systematic and purposeful management to stay healthy. And that means managing the land around the lake. So ALMS, Alberta Lake Management Society, our position is the best way to protect lake health is to help stewards, and I mean this in a very broad and general sense, protect lake ecosystems through setting ecological outcomes for each lake. And ecological outcomes is really important because we often hear there should be a balance between economic, social, and ecological factors. We're promoting the ecological outcomes here today and in general because we feel that if you can deal with that, it is doable, then you can also find success in economic and social factors. Okay, so just briefly, what do we mean when we talk about lake watershed management plans? We've heard, sort of both terms, lake management plans, lake watershed management plans. I think we are talking about the same thing. So in a nutshell, it works to identify shared concerns throughout the community, build partnerships, and it is a plan to manage human activities on land that affect water, wildlife, fish, plants, you name it, ecological health. It sets realistic objectives, indicators, and actions to achieve those ecological outcomes, and it is primarily to help focus stewardship activities, policy, and regulations around your lake. So here's the cycle. So this cycle, we didn't make this up. Lots of references from where this came from. So primarily, we've aligned ourselves with the Alberta Water Council's guidelines for watershed planning. Also, Dave Mussel, he mentioned that they're coming out with a guide to watershed planning in Alberta. These are the exact same 6 steps. This is also routinely used around the world. Lots of places in North America. The North American Lake Management Society also uses a similar process. Okay, yeah, go on. So we're going to go through each of these steps in a little bit more detail, but I only have 15 minutes, and I'll say that this is also documented, like I said, in Dave Mussel's guide, as well as one that we're producing and should be published sometime this summer. Okay, so first step, understand. Go this one. So we all heard from Leah, said we have to work on producing the State of the Watershed reports. These are the 2 guides that you can find on the Water for Life website. Go to them, find out how to, easy peasy. But what we also promote is at this stage, you need to develop an initial vision. You need to have an idea of that outcome I was mentioning. So here's an example. It should be emotive, but also practical and doable. So we have the watershed is healthy, nutrient loading is not significantly above pre-disturbance levels, the lake is attracting anglers and other water recreational activities in and around the lake. Simple, a vision, somewhere where you're working towards. So after you've done your State of the Watershed report, you next need to decide how you're going to work together. You need to collaborate. So you can't just do this, you and 5 of your best friends. You really need to reach out and find everyone who has a vested interest in managing your lake. So here's a table, comes from our guide, comes from Dave Mussel's guide. Has Government of Alberta, a whole bunch of different departments that you should be making formal requests from, has all your other governments, municipalities, primarily First Nations, as well as your federal departments. NGOs, environmental non-government organizations, ALMS is happy to help with lake management plans. Cows and Fish, Alberta Conservation Association, these are people that can also help you resource or maybe provide input into the plan. And finally, you should be contacting businesses or people that have a vested interest. Chamber of Commerce's, local synergy groups, oil and gas, people that may be able to provide input but also help implement. Right. Then next you have to decide how you're going to work together, right? Because that's a lot of people. That there could be big issues with trying to work with that great of a group. So what we recommend is a nested process. So you, right in the middle, this is overlapping, so people can be involved in multiple circles. The circles represent the size of the group as well as the fact that they can go between the different groups. We have in the middle your project leaders in Alberta and under the Water for Life strategy. That is often going to be a watershed stewardship group, but certainly not restricted to that. Municipalities have had a role in this in lots of other cases. Then outside that, you have a steering committee, which may be the watershed stewardship group, your municipality, maybe some government people that can work through all the processes and are really committed to seeing it through the long term. Outside of that, you will have your advisory group that will probably be made up of other governments, industry, people that, again, like I said, have a vested interest in the lake and its resources. And broad and outside of all that is the watershed community. So we talked about the science and how important it is. The next one, you have to have a technical committee. You have to have somebody or some group of people that can help inform each of those groups as to what is the science and what you actually need to do, what will produce the best methods, the best results for your lake watershed management plan. Okay, so third step. Now you're actually going to be getting into drafting the plan. That's a lot of things to go before you even get down to writing anything on paper. So you're sitting down, you have to examine the alternatives, make a final decision on the course of action, and define those measurable outcomes. You're going to be identifying and prioritizing issues through stakeholder engagement. You have to have lots and lots and lots of communication. You can't just come up with ideas sitting in a room without talking to people in the watershed and all those other layers of that circle. You're going to be also sitting down refining the vision for the lake. At this point, you kind of know what the issues are, and you might be able to come up with maybe some more firm targets in those outcomes. And then you're going to work together with those outcomes to find specific objectives, specific projects and actions that you can take to achieve that final outcome. Again, I put a bullet in the circle there, is that before you can move past the planning, you have to confirm the support for that plan. Shop it out, whoever who will listen, whoever will read it. This could take a while, but you can't move past this stage until you have agreement that the plan is what you guys are moving forward with. Okay, fourth step, implement. I'm not going to spend much time on this because this is exactly what Dave was talking about, but you're going to be identifying the people who are responsible for coordinating and completing the actions. In the ideal situation, that advisory group, the people that are outside of the steering committee, they would have agreed to the plan actions, they would internalize them and take them and run off and implement them on their own. That's what we would hope that would happen. You probably want to identify sources of funding and break it down into manageable projects. So those two open bullets there, I think this is a really key spot in the process. This is where we think the plan could be made a bit more than a recommendation. It could be put into statutory documents. This is where I think you would want to see it adopted by municipal governments, possibly in an ASP, municipal development plan, land use bylaw, something like that. It also can be used possibly for informing the regional plans. So in this area, it would be the North Saskatchewan Regional Plan that is set to kick off. The regional plan will have frameworks associated with it that will set targets for different things, and phosphorus should be one of them. At least we hope to see phosphorus in the frameworks for water quality in particular. Okay. So you've done this, you're implementing. You got to make sure that whatever you've done on the ground is actually making the difference that you hoped it would. So you're going to gather and evaluate progress towards the objectives and the actions within the plan. There's two parts of this. First, you're going to probably do a check mark exercise. You can say, check, check, yeah, we said we were going to do this, yeah, we are, check, check, check. Then the next one is actually making sure that whatever you did is actually achieving the results you wanted it to. So you're measuring indicators, phosphorus, come up over and over as you want to be seeing if the impact or if the actions in your watershed are actually reducing the phosphorus reaching your lake. And also we put in here that you could probably be at this point updating that state of the watershed report and using it as a report card for your activities. Okay, so you monitor, so the final step is to adapt. Say you find that your indicators that you are monitoring are not getting better with your watershed activities and your actions. You have to refine. You can't just have your watershed plan sit on a shelf and be there looking good. You need to be constantly updating it and finding the tools that are going to achieve those outcomes. If you want to realize your vision, there's no point in doing all this work if we do not see the vision achieved in the end. And I also put here that with those frameworks and regional plans, it'd be wonderful if they come up with triggers and limits, and we can see some sort of statutory action happening around those limits. So this is wishful thinking. It's not reality yet, but that's our hope. Oh, okay. So here's the cycle again. So 4-6 steps, and it's going to be documented. So this is the document that I'm working off of. It's changed its name slightly. It's to a workbook for developing lake management plans. It's still in draft. It's being circulated. Hopefully we'll have it printed this summer. And if you want to see a draft or use it, maybe even just the cycle, I'm more than happy to share it. Also, a couple people have had me come out there and give presentations to their steering committees or their steering groups. I'm happy to do that as well.